This is Dr. Tamia Guest with Rejuvenating Chiropractic.
This is Nara Reed with Modified Nutrition Health Coach.
This is Karen Marcel with June Street Barbershop.
This is Tiffany Marcel with Marcel Luxury Realty, and you're listening to Boss Talk Radio.
The U.S. government has given billions of dollars to businesses in an effort to curb the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government will begin to pursue recouping these funds in 2021. Aggressive penalties will be imposed on companies that do not follow regulations and guidelines for proper use of these funds. Criminal charges are already being levied on fraudulent use. Don't suffer again. Get a customized business operations success suite from Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services for your company today. Boss packages include entity formation, payroll, accounting and bookkeeping, tax planning, tax filings, and quarterly strategy sessions to minimize your tax liability, increase efficiency, and maximize your profits. Make your appointment today at elite8financial.com. Get the guidance, tools, and protection your business needs now. Get Boss. Get behind the shield.
Welcome to Boss Talk Radio, the #1 online business and entrepreneurial talk show. Brought to you by Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services. Here's your host, the Texas tax expert, George Dandridge.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Boss Talk Radio. I'm liking this new thing that we're doing with the other segments earlier in the week. You guys have responded greatly to that and really been checking out those views. And it really affords us more time when we have our guests on Fridays. And today's guest is a representative from True Fund. You may remember her being on last year. And let's see what we got going on here. You may remember her being on last year. And a lot of you guys have asked me questions, inboxes, emails regarding the PPP, EIDL, what qualifies for funding, how can you get funding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's start with this part. This is not a free money grab. If you don't have your business in order, your likelihood is greatly reduced. So in 2019, well before the pandemic, we had a special offer out for helping you guys get your books together and everything in order to prepare for your tax returns. Who saw the pandemic coming? I'm going to say that it was divine for us. While a lot of people had to adjust business models and everything, we've been able to service people around the country through our virtual model over at elite8financial.com. If you haven't visited the site, go ahead and do that as soon as possible. And if you do not have your financials in order, your profit and loss, your balance sheets, please go to elite8financial.com and make an appointment so we can assess what you need and help you get that done. The information is on the bottom of the screen there. And you want to go ahead and get out your pen and paper because we're going to bring you guys a wealth of information here over the next 57 minutes and whatnot. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to do that while we do some housekeeping. The IRS has announced just today that the filing season will begin on February the 12th. And I know firsthand that that's causing some of you some stress. A lot of people are laid off. A lot of people have had their income dramatically reduced due to COVID-19. And so all week long, what we've been doing is putting information out there from the SBA and other sources for different types of funding that are out there. Guys, stop getting your information from Facebook University and go and see the professionals, the people that do this. Case in point, you guys have been asking me for the better part of a month now about the PPP stuff and everything. And here's the reality. Unlike last year, I just didn't have the time to research all of that and do all of that. I was focusing on the tax law updates. So, of course, what we wanted to do was bring you guys the professionals that can really answer your questions. So I hope you got your pen and paper and that you guys are ready to go. And we're going to welcome to the show Miss LaShonda Renee, and she's going to give you guys the game on this right after these messages.
Ready to begin your business? Should you be an LLC or a C corporation? How do you track the cost of goods versus operating supplies? What are your depreciable assets? Are you structured to obtain business credit? Not sure? Get a boss. An individual business operations success suite from Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services will position your business for success and avoid the pitfalls of startups. From registering with your state, operating agreements, bookkeeping, tax filings, and more, Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services can be your growth partner at every level of your business. Schedule your needs assessment today at www.elite8financial.com/boss or by phone at 469-412-0056.
So we're back on Boss Talk Radio. If you love somebody, share the video. If you're watching from social media, if you're checking this out later on YouTube and or on Facebook, we want you to put hashtag replay and let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you're listening on any one of the dozen or more podcast players or whatever, we hope that this gives you guys the information that you need to help support your business. So Boss Talk Radio is the Business Operations Success Suite. We bring you professionals and entrepreneurs from all across industries to discuss success and failures and best practices for running your business. Our guest today is a very accomplished young lady, and last year we had her on the show. She reached out and we had her on the show along with some of her colleagues to discuss the region that they covered and everything. And I can tell you firsthand that 100% of the people that I sent to her program, they all received funding. I mean, from like, I think the smallest amount was 12,000, and I think the highest amount was like 330 some thousand or whatever. You know, don't know if you guys need money like that. Most of y'all are probably rich. You know, y'all do it for the gram. I do it for the fam. Y'all do it for the income. I do it for the outcome. So welcome to the show, Miss LaShonda Renee. How you doing today? I'm sorry, we had your, I think your mic is muted on your side.
Hi, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh, you're not coming through on here. Let's do a sound check. Y'all let me know if y'all can hear LaShonda out there, because I'm not hearing her over here on this side.
Can you hear me now? How about now?
Can you hear me? You can hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can hear you fine.
We're going to do, let's see, okay, they're saying they hear both of us or whatever. So I don't know why I can't hear you. That's a little bit of a issue for me because I can't hear the questions. Let me see if I undo this mic. Can you hear me now? You say something?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Okay, now I can hear
Yay.
you. Welcome. How you been?
I'm well. How are you? It's so great to talk to you again.
I don't know how I am. I feel like it's been tax season for 2 years right now. I don't know how I feel. This was like the longest tax season ever. It started last year in January, and it feels like it never, ever stopped. So I know you guys have been inundated with calls or whatever. I'm guilty. I've been one of those ones calling. People have been
Keep them
calling
coming.
from,
Keep them coming. Keep them
you
coming.
know, Hawaii and everywhere. Like, hey, George, I need some money. It's like, hey, I don't have no money, but let me let you talk to LaShonda. So go ahead and tell everybody first about yourself and your background, because, you know, when I say I know people, and like, hey, I'm not that big of a deal, but the people I know make me a big deal. So
Well, I'm not a big deal either, but I work with True Fund Financial Services. I'm our managing director, which means I'm responsible for our operations in Texas. And prior to coming to True Fund, I managed programming and resource development for several nonprofits and government organizations prior to.
see, something like a big deal. That's kind of like a big deal, you know. Um, People in the nonprofit sector, this is somebody you want to talk to. So then tell them about True Fund, because I know everybody's tuned in today to get the money, but there's so much more value that you guys bring as it relates to positioning businesses for things such as business credit, government funding from grants and things of that nature. So tell them about True Fund.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So, True Fund Financial Services, we are a certified uh, CDFI, which is a community development financial institution, and we're certified by the US Treasury. And what that means is that we're essentially a nonprofit small business lender, and we're mission based. So we are not making loans to the small business community truly for profit. It's more so for that that those the the outcomes that we're really looking for, and supporting business growth and capacity building. And so we're mission to serve entrepreneurs of color, specifically African American entrepreneurs, and those who are in low and moderate income communities, and those who hire individuals from low and moderate income communities. And we're working on expanding our certification to include those in the Latinx community as well, because we do have a great portion of our current clientele, and we anticipate much of our future clientele will be from that community as well. And so, with that being said, as a small business lender, we serve entrepreneurs in two different ways: through the lending platform, as well as through our small business education platform. And so, we understand that capital is not enough. That capacity building is really important. So, we like to meet our borrowers where they are, or our clients, because they're not always borrowers. Sometimes our clients come to us and they're not really sure where to start, and or they're started and they're just wanting to get some help dusting off some of their skills, maybe refining some of those skills, maybe picking up a few new skills as it relates to their business management, and their business savvy generally, especially around financial education and understanding financial statements, as well as some really great operational and business management strategies that they pick up through our programs. And so all of our programs are intended to support our main line of business, which is lending. And so for the most part, or I wouldn't say for the most part, but a large part of our clientele or our portfolio are those who are, of course, MWBEs, or minority and women-owned businesses. But within that group, we're looking at many people who are in the contracting space. So these are folks who are generating business revenue from government entities or large corporate entities. As well, women-owned businesses. We have a huge portfolio of women-owned businesses, and we have a long history of working with MWBEs, as well as disaster recovery and business resiliency. And so True Fund actually got its start after 9/11, supporting small businesses that have been impacted by the terrorist attacks of 9/11. And so since then, we've continued to grow as an organization. As things have happened, either natural or man-made disasters across the country, we have been able to then respond and support small businesses. So we're headquartered in New York, but we also have offices in Texas, in Louisiana, and Alabama, and we have since begun to serve businesses in Georgia, and so as well as New Jersey. And so our expansion has really been in response to our ability to reach out to communities that have been impacted by disaster and say, you know what, we're a resource. Please allow us to be a part of the recovery of this community. And or the community has come to us and said, hey, we have had this impact and we've heard about True Fund, and we would love to have the support and the capacity that's brought by this organization. So it's been a really wonderful way for us to be a part of the community in a meaningful way, to build up entrepreneurs, to support the growth of small businesses. And we continue to do that today in Texas. We have an office in Houston, and we are also expanding into the Dallas, Fort Worth, and North Texas or North Central Texas areas. So it's been a lot of growth, a lot of fun, and we're really working on focusing, or we're really focused, I should say, on supporting business resiliency right now. As we know, so many businesses are impacted by COVID. So many entrepreneurs are asking, where do I go now? What do I do now? How do I save my business? How do I pivot, et cetera? And so we're there to be a resource both on the capital side as well as the business education.
And, I want to make sure that what people take away from that is that this is not a pop-up, a pandemic pop-up, if you would. Key parts that you guys need to take away from there. The CDFI. I got a lot of messages earlier this week about people saying that, well, SBA say I have to find a CDFI lender. What is that? And TrueFund is that. In addition to that, I want you guys to take away from that. If you noticed, this was not just about shelling out a bunch of dollars. The purpose in this is to help support businesses and grow businesses so that they can hire within their community. This is about the outcome, not the income. So the first thing that you guys must do is pivot to take your business seriously. You can't, I often get a call about, hey, where do I go for funding? My business needs money. And we'll just be quite honest, some of your businesses is not businesses yet. You're doing the side hustle, the side hustle boogie, and you're looking for this capital. And there is a standard, and that's what LaShonda was talking about as far as the education part. I'm proud to be one of the subject matter experts for TrueFund, by the way, and help serve in that capacity. But the education part is big. And with all the information that people like myself, people like yourself put out there, I'm perplexed as to why that doesn't have the same reach as some of the Facebook University news or what have you, when we're the sources, So let's jump right into what everybody is asking about with PPP. I want to start here. Okay,
I would like to give a few stats on TrueFund. You did mention we're not a COVID coronavirus pop-up. We have been in business as a nonprofit CDFI for many years, as I mentioned, since 9/11. So we're looking at about 19 years serving as a loan fund and 15 years as an officially certified CDFI with the U.S. Treasury. And since then, and since that time, we've supported small businesses with over $160 million that have been put into communities of color and communities that are low and moderate income, and businesses that support and hire individuals coming from low and moderate income communities.
Say that again. Say that again. That part right there. Say that part again.
Supported. So yes, we have supported over 12,000 jobs being either created or retained in communities of color and in low and moderate income communities. And that is huge. We are an economic development resource for communities. So yes, we focus on that community development related to really getting resources out to the community and developing capacity, but economic development in terms of job creation, that is in large part what we do. The work that we do is intended to support small businesses so that they can go out and hire. And of those jobs and of those dollars that have gone out, over 70% of those are to MWBEs, and over 50% of that are to businesses and LMI communities. So we're talking about real impact and outcomes in the communities that most need it. And so that is what we continue to do and strive for, and look for opportunities to partner with government entities, to partner with corporate entities, to partner with other nonprofits and business serving organizations. So we can continue to increase that number. And 2020 was yet another year that we were able to bring new products, new services, new partners. And so, we're just looking at all the ways that we can support the community and where there are gaps, because that's how we have also grown, is that we see where there's a need and we're responsive to that need. Because again, we're in and of the community. We are a minority-led organization locally in Texas. We're also nationally a minority-led organization. So we understand the clientele that we're working with.
Am I the only one that's thinking LaShonda for president? I mean, because y'all didn't even have to elect her. And she's working for y'all for real. I'm just saying, am I the only one thinking that? But okay, so one of the things that I teach and preach all the time is operational efficiency and operational compliance. Can you speak to the audience about the prerequisites, things that you just absolutely have to have if you're going to be applying for any of this funding that's out there?
So there are two different sets of documentation. Let me say that, right? So there's PPP funding that everyone is focused on right now, and that is a very specific set of documents, let's say, that are required. When we're looking at applying for or accessing capital more generally as a small business, you're going to be looking at a much more detailed and longer list of documents. So I do want to say that. So what we're looking for PPP at this point, you need to be able to essentially prove three things, right? We want to know how you generate self-employment income or business income. We want to be able to
put a pause right there.
Sure.
How you generate employment income or business income?
Self-employment income specifically, or business income. Yes.
Let's address this this fallacy that was out there. So if you tried to create an LLC after Christmas for the purpose, now, I know it sounds funny, but people are like serious about that. Like they're blowing up the phone. So if I create an LLC, can I get the PPP? Like,
no, sir.
It's none of this works. So I just wanted to start with dispelling that rumor because y'all say I'm petty. Y'all don't believe what I tell you. So this is coming from the future POTUS here. What's next after that? How you generate the income?
Well, that was actually a very funny segue to my second point, which is that we also need you to prove that you were actually in business on February 15th, 2020. That date is very important. So you have to be able to prove through documentation, paperwork, that shows that you were generating revenue. So you can do that in a couple of ways. You can do that through your taxes. You can do that through bank statements. You can do that through invoices. You can do that through a book of business. So anything really, receipts that show that you were generating revenue as a business on February the 15th, 2020, and or you were self-employed.
So essentially, what you're saying is you had to have already been in business generating some revenue at a bare minimum a year ago.
Yes. So essentially the program is called the Payroll or Paycheck Protection Program. It is intended to retain the jobs that were in place at the time of the pandemic. And so that is why you have to prove that you were in business at the time of February 15th, which is considered the, I guess, official start of the pandemic in the US. And so that is where you have to prove that, yes, at this date, I was in business. And then the third thing you need to be able to prove is that the amount that you're asking for is valid. So we need to have documentation to support your calculation. And I will say, lots of people got really mixed up with this and turned around and a bit confused, and there was a lot of misinformation going out. And it's not any number that you say that you had, it's very specific numbers coming from specific spots on a tax return. So that's how you're making calculations. You're not making calculations because you just added up maybe, your general receipts that you think that maybe you had in a year and doing some math. It's really very specifically tied to how you file your taxes. So if you
couple things on that. So you're saying at a minimum, you have to be tax return compliant. So I've had some people, you may not believe this, ask me how to get PPP that hasn't filed a tax return since 2015. And
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, that's not what I do, but are you compliant on your taxes? Well, no, but I have this, that, and the third. I have my receipts. Not going to work. Then, so I do have a question though, as it relates to because even pre-COVID, but especially since then, the gig economy has exploded. And what I have typically found in that segment of the economy, whether it's people doing pop-up shops, DoorDash, whatever the case may be, they tend not to keep records because they don't consider it a business. They're doing the extra income. Is there, what would be the solution for somebody like this, assuming, because I've actually seen where people have underreported their income on their tax return in an attempt to evade taxes on it or whatever, not realizing that, hey, those little swipe payments and cash apps and all that stuff gets reported. So, what would you advise those people to do as it relates to positioning themselves to get money that they're actually entitled to get if they were keeping records?
Yeah, so the record keeping is really important. I'd like to harken back to our last session last year and quote one of my colleagues, Kim Carter Evans. And she had mentioned that she had a boss many years ago that said, you got to have that white paper right so you can get that green paper right. Right. So you have to have your documents in order. You have to have things properly filed and documented, whether you're working with a bookkeeper or an accountant, or you your own are working with QuickBooks or some other system. You have to have a way to show and demonstrate that you were generating business revenue. And when you think about access to capital, you also have to decide, am I going to be looking to reduce my tax burden by not filing all of the income that I have, or am I going to position myself to be able to demonstrate that I can repay a loan? And so as a lender, we have to look and see, not just that you've asked for something and that you're telling us that you have a certain amount of income. We have to look back at your taxes and your documentation and your status with the IRS, to verify that income. And also, that is how we calculate whether you can essentially debt service, which means to repay the loan. So whatever outstanding debt you have plus the debt you're requesting, you have to be able to show that you have that income. And so it can't be like separate receipts on the side, but you filed taxes that show, let's say, $50,000 in income, but you have additional receipts to show $100,000 in income. We really have to use what's in your sort of official documentation that you use with the IRS and your financial statements that are provided. And we do reconcile both.
Somebody look at your neighbor and say history. This I say this all the time. When the water is still and the winds are calm, that is the time to cast your sails. You can't wait until there's a pandemic. A pandemic. I say it so much, it just slipped. You can't wait until a time like this and think you're going to go and get 2 to 3 years of bookkeeping done in a 2 or 3 day period in order to be one of the first to apply for these loans or whatever. So I urge you guys right now, if it's not me, find someone that is the cost to be in the game. First of all, our services are tax deductible. Let's start there. Second of all, it is a time-consuming task for you to attempt to do, especially when you don't know what you're doing. You have the learning curve plus the activity of getting this done. And too often, people want to avoid taxes the wrong way, but that's the cost to play. That's the cost to get into this thing. I see a couple thousand posts a day about credit, business credit, et cetera, et cetera. And there's some people that want to argue whether or not cash is king, but let me tell you something. Bad credit with ability to play makes a bit of a difference. You have to prove that you are worth the risk, not just on the credit side, but you could have an 850 credit score, but if you don't have money to show that you can pay this thing.
So, George, that's a really great point, and that's something that we do look at, right? So, we're looking at credit scores, and by the way, True Fund is able to support small businesses with credit scores as low as 600. And so, for people accessing capital traditionally from a bank, that is not even anywhere near a number that most banks would touch. So, for some people, they would say, well, that doesn't seem like that's so low. But if you go to a bank with a 600 credit score, it's highly unlikely that you would be able to access credit or capital,
I would
especially
like to
business
go sit
credit.
down with you.
So, I'd like to let people know that as well. So, right. So we're able to support those who aren't able to go to a traditional lending institution, and they can come to True Fund. And coming to True Fund doesn't mean you have bad credit. It just may mean that the kind of credit or capital, excuse me, that you're looking for is not available at other institutions, or you're in an industry like construction that's very high risk, which a lot of banks will not touch. So it's really all about understanding the financial institution's appetite for risk, their appetite for the type of industry that you're in and type of business, and most importantly, your ability to prove and demonstrate who you are as a business, right? So we need to know who you are as a business. We need to know how you generate business revenue. We need to know that you understand your business model and that you will have the cash flow to be able to repay. And then, of course, because it's COVID, we also need to understand how COVID is impacting your business model and revenue generation, and how you're mitigating and or reducing the negative impact or the risk of COVID to your business.
When we come back, I want to take a little bit deeper dive into the education piece. You mentioned something there about understanding your business model. And I'm finding more and more that some people are so driven by the sale or by the income that they don't understand and or respect how their business needs to operate internally, and it makes for a short-term existence. We'll be back right after this.
This is Dr. Tamia Guest with Rejuvenating Chiropractic.
This is Nara Reed with Modified Nutrition Health Coach.
This is Karen Marcel with June Street Barbershop.
This is Tiffany Marcel with Marcel Luxury Realty, and you're listening to Boss Talk Radio.
I paid the cost to be born.
We could not continue to do our filing of our taxes in the traditional sense that we've been doing for so many years. So we opted to go ahead and take the advice from one of our friends that went ahead and referred us. And since he referred us, we said, we decided let's go ahead and check Elite 8 out, and we're glad we did. They were extremely very thorough, so that's part of the excitement that we really enjoyed with Elite 8. So some of the parts of the values that we really enjoyed was that they were, beyond the fact that they were trustworthy, very thorough, extremely responsive, and the fact that we could do things online just the same that we were able to do in the traditional sense.
Get behind the shield.
Knowledge, integrity,
Security. Service. Get behind the shield.
We're back with our guest, LaShonda Renee with True Fund. So before the break, we were talking about people understanding their business model. And you guys actually have a program that teaches basically how to operate businesses internally above and beyond whatever the industry is, just the nuts and bolts of what has to go in business. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you mentioned earlier was about, the opportunity cost, right? That you were sort of implying that, it's tedious, it's time consuming. You really have to have a level of knowledge to do it well and to do it in a way that's going to benefit your business. And so certainly we understand that folks are at different stages and different places. But at minimum, we say educate yourself, right? So maybe you feel that you're not ready to work with a CPA or a financial advisor, which we certainly think you should. But, everyone is, folks are where they are. But at minimum, educate yourself. And so we offer business education and advisory services to small businesses. And as an example is our financial empowerment program. And that is where we really take the entrepreneur, the CEO through the financial statement. We're looking first at your business model, and we're looking at that from two different points of view. We're looking at the legal aspect of that, and we have an attorney who comes in and talks about the different types of business models and structures that you might select and what are some of the benefits. And then we have, on the tax side, we have an accountant that comes in and talks about the tax benefits and the how your tax filing structure impacts you. And then we relate those things over to the financial statement, right? Because all of these things tie together. And so when we're looking at those financial statements, we want you, the owner, to be thinking about how to utilize those those financial statements in three ways. We want you to be able to manage your business well and make informed decisions. So your ability to look through those and read those financial statements, that's really what we're focused on helping you do. So we're looking at from your,
Decisions, yes.
right? Then the second way, we want you to have an informed and um, intelligent conversation with your CPA, right? And so that's the other aspect that we're looking at. Are you able to read the information that you're getting from bookkeepers and accountants and CPAs who are really helping to put together your financial statements? Or are you just accepting what's being given, and then when you go to access capital, you really can't speak to what's there? And or you can't, be clear about what or why different things are happening or numbers are moving from this place to that, et cetera. And then the other piece that we're looking at is in terms of the systems that you have. So what tools are out there like Quick that you can utilize, and how to pull and utilize various tools within that system, so that, again, you can make informed decisions. So it's really all about helping the entrepreneur at minimum have a baseline understanding of very important things as it relates to financial management and financial statements. And then at that point, our hope is that, whether you decide to work with an accountant or not, you at minimum feel more empowered, more clear about what information is important and what you should be looking for in terms of your financial statements. And hopefully that you can utilize that tool, the financial statements, as a tool, which they are, to be able to make decisions that support growth in your business. We also have a number of other programs that we put on, some that are specific to women, some that are specific to industry like contractors, some focused on digital marketing and really establishing an online presence. And then we have our programming that really it's focused on business resiliency and disaster recovery. But the reality is you have to be resilient, right? What we learned in 2020, what we learned in 2019, what we learned, you can just keep going back every year. I think there's been something that happened that reminded us that we all must be resilient, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all must be able to weather shocks. We all must be able to operate and pivot and do things responsively and not in a reactionary from behind the eight ball position, so that we can make strategic decisions and that we can endure and maintain business continuity.
And I preach that all the time. Data-driven decisions. You can't afford. I mean, there's a place for instinct, but not emotion when it comes to driving your business. With every passing year, the benefit of every passing year is you have more data to pull from to make better quality decisions. So we have Mr. Blanks in the building, and he's asking if we can explain the underwriting requirements for the EIDL.
Well, I will say this, the EIDL, or also known as EIDL, that is a loan product that you access directly through the SBA. So that you don't go through a true fund or any other lender, you get an EIDL loan directly from the SBA. And quite frankly, I can't speak to the underwriting policies as it relates to that, because we're not involved in that. All I can say is that, or share what I know, in that if you are a business that has been impacted by a disaster, be it COVID, or there was recently hurricanes in Louisiana and there were disaster designations made in Southeast Texas as well, there were some disaster designations made. And so if you qualify for the EIDL loan, there are going to be some things that they're going to ask you a bit more in depth than the PPP, because it is not a forgivable loan program. It is a loan that you do have to repay, but there are going to be more favorable terms. So I can't really speak to the underwriting that is used for that particular product, though.
And also to that, Eric, is I'm not very well versed in that, but I know a couple of the components is that you have to be able to show 25% reduction over 2 quarters post onset of the pandemic. And the rest of it really comes down to tax returns, ability to pay, things of that nature. But if you do qualify, I've had some people say, "Well, hey, I don't need this much money right now." I'm like, so you really know what 2021 is going to bring? I suggest you go ahead and take that right now, because the terms to pay that back are very, very favorable.
Yeah, and they're also over. One of the reasons why they're so favorable is because it's over a long period of time, and so you have a long runway to be able to repay, which reduces your payments quite a bit, and also, of course, just gives you a longer repayment time, so that you don't have to, like the PPP loan or some other products where you have to repay in a much shorter time frame. So that is a benefit there that you have. I don't want to misspeak, but it's certainly, I think, over 10 years that you have. It may be up to 15 or 30 years on that EIDL loan. So you have to repay it, but you have a long time to repay it, and the interest rate is pretty low. You mentioned the 25%, George, the reduction. So I would like to address that with PPP. So that is a big thing that folks are confused about and or not well informed on. So if you are applying for PPP this round and you did not apply before, the 25% reduction in gross revenue doesn't apply to you. It only applies to those people who received PPP last year in 2020 in rounds 1 or 2. So those folks who received a PPP loan last year in 2020 and have repaid that, not have repaid, and have used their funds, they can apply for a second, what's considered a second draw. And those folks have to prove that they had a 25% reduction in overall revenue, either quarter by quarter or annually. So if you know for sure, once you look at your financials from 2019 to 2020, that your 2020 was 25% less in revenue than 2019, you could just use your annual. But for some people, that's not accurate. So for some people, that's not true. But they did have a reduction of at least 25% in, let's say, quarter 1 of 2020 compared to quarter 1 of 2019, or quarter 4 of 2020 compared to quarter 4 of 2019. You just have to compare the appropriate quarter. So it can't be you're comparing quarter 1 of 2019 and quarter 4 of 2020. It has to be the same quarter from 2019 and 2020. But as long as you can prove that you had at least a 25% reduction, then you qualify. So you're really not supposed to get it unless you qualify. The way the verbiage is in the guideline is that they're saying that under $150,000, they recommend that you provide the support and documentation for that 25% reduced revenue. And if it's over $150,000, they're saying that you are required. However, you also have, there's a little bit of flexibility in the language. And so at minimum, if you want to get your loan forgiven, which is really key, you must have that documentation and you must provide that to your lender. So even if you're not providing it at application or at closing, at least when you put your application in for forgiveness, you must have that documentation to prove that you had the 25% loss, or the SBA will not forgive that loan. And then it becomes an actual loan that you have to repay.
You're listening to Boss Talk Radio. We have LaShonda Renee in the building with True Fun. If you're just joining in with us, drop your name in the comments. Let us know where you're coming from. And if you guys have any questions, let's go ahead and put those up there, because you have to understand what a valuable source this is to have her here to be able to give us this insight on not only how to apply, but how to prepare yourself for just business success in general. Again, I'm a proud partner, SME subject matter expert, partner to True Fund, and have enjoyed. The relationship has been great, and they take great care of my clients. So I'm telling everybody, hey, this is where you need to go. And currently, you're serving Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, and Texas, correct?
And New York. So True Fund, yeah,
In New
that's True
York.
Fund. Yeah. So we're
Why
lending for
y'all skip over
PPP.
Mississippi? Why y'all do Mississippi like that?
Listen, we're not going to get into all that, but I can speak for those specific areas that we serve. And so right now for PPP, we are lending and accepting applications in New York, in Georgia, in Louisiana, in Alabama, in Texas, and in New Jersey. And so those are the specific areas for PPP that we're accepting applications. And our core markets are New York, Louisiana, Alabama, and Texas. And, we're certified by the U.S. Treasury. So it's not a matter of we just sort of walk into a place and say, hey, we're here. It's a whole process of, becoming certified and being able to serve any given community. But we are proud of those communities that we work in and live in. And it's wonderful to be a part of an organization that has a mission that is so community oriented.
So we have so many small business, and a lot of people don't realize how big the term small business is, like how many millions and numbers of employees that can encompass. But we have so many micro businesses, if you would, that oftentimes just don't know where to go to really get information. And I'm going to put the information for True Fund on the screen now. You guys go ahead and be sure, do a screenshot, write it down, do what you need to do to be able to get this information. I missed the phone number on that. I'll add it on there later. But this is just one resource for just unbelievable amounts of information. And because I don't know if you heard the part, certified by the U.S. Treasury, not Facebook University. This is a qualified source of information. So what is something that you would really want everybody to walk away with knowing today as it relates to the micro businesses, what they need to do immediately to be able to position themselves? Because this is typically the people that only employ 1 to 2 other people. They may not run payroll. They have them as 1099 contractor or something. They didn't keep up with their books. What are some of the things they just need to do right away?
So first of all, making sure that you are registered with your Secretary of State within your the Secretary of State's office. We have a lot of people who are operating as DBAs and as sole proprietors, and what they learn, and we'll get into that later. So we'll stay focused, right? So first of all, getting
It's
registered.
coming up
Right?
next. Somebody already put the question up there. I'm gonna put it on the screen.
So get registered with the Secretary of State. So make sure that you're legitimate. If you're really wanting to operate a business, especially if you want to access capital, register your business, get an EIN number, get yourself prepared to file your taxes and pay your taxes. Work with a professional who can help you to get your books in order and educate yourself. So resources like True Fund, we are a business education resource. So you can come to True Fund and take classes with us and learn about. I'm sorry?
How much do those classes cost?
Oh, they're free. We are a nonprofit organization, and we raise money all day long so that we can offer these programs for free all day long.
So you offer all this information, and it's not $9.99 per course?
It's free $99.
It's free $99. They often say that things that are free aren't worth having, but I'm telling you, having looked at the ins and outs of this program, you won't come away with the MBA level knowledge, but I'm telling you, if you are interested in being in business or are already in business and you've never done any formal business education, this is the most well spent time you could ever have. So we have SL Clark in the building. Our people from out in
If I could
ATL.
just tag on to what you're saying, George,
Yeah.
invest in yourself and invest in your business. And you do that by investing in the education of yourself as a business owner. There are just so many resources out there. And, we take great care of your clients, George, but we take great care of all of our clients. We take the
My
work that we do
clients
seriously. And I will say it's free 99 to you, but somebody's paying for it and they're paying a lot of money for it. So this is not a free program in that, you know, we just dug it up somewhere. This is we've had a lot of experience. We have subject matter experts. We have staff that are very seasoned and knowledgeable. And we work with many different foundations and government entities to be able to bring this level of service and this level of programming to our clients. And so, though it may be free to them, it's someone is paying for it, right? And they're really investing in true funds so that we can invest in our community.
And so we have SL Clark in the building with the question of, and we did talk about this very early on, Elle, because I had to get this one out there, but she's asking again, what are your thoughts on people who are creating an LLC and falsifying info to obtain loans, or they had an EIN prior to January 2020, but they haven't operated a business, filed or paid taxes, and they're falsifying documents? My thoughts are, they're going to jail. And so they're going to cost me money twice, because first, they're taking money from people that could actually use it. And then second, while they're sitting in jail, they're wasting my tax dollars. So that's my thoughts on it.
Well, I will say this. My thoughts are this is a federal program that is managed by the Small Business Administration, which is a part of the federal government. And they do have the full support of the US government behind them. So if you are falsifying documents, then that's between you and the SBA and the federal government. And I would not want to be in your shoes.
I actually seen recently, I was at a restaurant and the business right next door, the feds came in and got the owner out for falsifying documents or whatever. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. The cost to get your books in order is so much less than the time you would spend in jail or the money you'd spend on attorney fees, and the attorney is hopeless at
You
that
also
point.
disqualify yourself, George, for any other funding that's related to the federal government. So you also have to think about the implications, not just for this program, but this, again, is a federal government program. So anything related to, and that is managed by the US government as it relates to money is going to be, impacted by that. So I would be very, very careful. And I would work with someone who's a professional if you have documentation that you're trying to get in order, so that you are filing things properly and that you understand how to make the calculations. Because at the end of the day, when you sign that application, it's you who is attesting that everything is valid. And the lender really can go only based on what you submit. Of course, we do our due diligence and we review, and we've had to tell people does not look like a document that we can accept. But everyone is not going to necessarily have that due diligence or integrity. We know this is, people are people. And so I would just advise that you be on the up and up and be
They
better.
never had to say that to an everyday client, by the way. I'm going to just put that out there. But so the information we have on the screen, I know that's where people can go to find more information about the PPP and also apply, but can they also see the information about how to take some of these wonderful classes that you guys offer to uplift the community?
Yeah, so if they shoot me an email, my email address I think is on the on the screen at lrenee@trufund.org, and that's trufund.org. I'll be happy to respond via email, and I'll send you a couple of things. I'll send you the applications for PPP if that's what you're requesting, as well as specific instructions on how to complete the document, as well as connections to the different guidelines that you should be referencing. As well, I'll send you a link where you can register for our programming that we have beginning in February. So we have a financial empowerment program that begins in February, as well as a women in business program focused on pitch education. And we have a professional pitch coach that works with our clients to be able to pull together a pitch deck presentation, as well as to be able to craft and refine their existing pitch and or to create one if they have yet to take the time to do so. So I'll be happy to share that information with anyone who shoots me an email. You can get on our website as well and see a lot of, all the things that we do across the country. And again, we're here to serve, and you just let us know what you need. And if we can't help you, we certainly will connect you with a resource in the community that may be able to help you.
Now, I have another topic I want to hit in a moment, but somebody posted this. They didn't leave their, they didn't give access to their name, so I won't see it until I go onto Facebook later. But these are the types of questions I get a lot of times, and it's a very vague blanket statement. So I'm not sure who posted this, but I want to tell you that this is not enough information to be able to answer that type of a question. So if the question is whether or not the tutoring industry can take advantage of that, the answer is yes. Now, to the question of do you personally qualify, that's a process that you have to go through. And I'm sure you get this question a lot, right?
We get lots of very general questions. And we just always tell people, so we can broadly tell you who qualifies if you're registered as a business, whether it's an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, or a partnership, or as in terms of PPP, which is a bit unusual, is that as a sole proprietor or a self-employed individual, you can actually also apply. So it will just depend on how you're managing and how you have that business structured to determine, one, if you're eligible is really about the timing, right? So your business is likely eligible if it's an established business. However, were you in business on February 15th of 2020? And can you prove that you had business revenue generated through that business, either as a self-employed income or as business income? And so that would be really the sort of general answer that I could give. Anything that's more specific, we would have to see information specific on the business and the individual. And so again, you're welcome to shoot me an email at lrenee@trufund.org, and I'll respond and send you the link through which you can make your application for PPP. If you have a specific question, I'd be happy to answer it. But at the end of the day, we really can't make very specific answers to any business that we haven't had a chance to really look at their documentation and understand the business structure and the details.
If no one has told you this recently, I want to also share that, because this is a hard thing to do, but I have been very impressed by the responsiveness of the entire organization, but yourself especially, because last year during the peak of this, I mean, when this was just absolutely ambiguous foolishness going on, you respond to emails within 2 hours. I was able to get you on the phone. It took me a while to figure out, wait, I'm sending people to the wrong place. I need to be sending them to the TrueFund website. I gave them LaShonda's number or whatever, but you've just been incredibly responsive. So
thank you. It's my pleasure.
One of the questions that I have, you touched on this a couple of times, and I think that it is a overlooked designation for small businesses, especially minority small businesses. there seems to be this perception that the only value to it is if you're going to work with the government. Can you speak to some of the benefits of being a hub or MWB, et cetera, or MBE?
So there are lots of certifications out there for small businesses, Hub being one. There are MWBE certifications that you can get at city and state levels with different departments. There are federal designations that you can get, and it really just depends. There are also organizations that will certify, like WeBank, that'll certify women-owned businesses that are going to be potentially getting contracts with corporate entities. So it really just depends on your business model. As always, that's sort of the core of everything. We start at the business model, but it also depends on what you're selling. So what kind of product or what kind of service. So, we've had folks to come to us, let's say, and they want to get those B certification, which is the Women-Owned Small Business Certification through the SBA. That is really most beneficial to those women entrepreneurs who intend to work with the federal government to be able to access contracts. So each of those certifications have what are called set-asides. And so these are dollars available through federal government contracting that are specifically set aside for those who have designated certifications. So it might be veteran-owned certifications, it might be women-owned, it might be minority-owned. There are various classifications, and there are set-asides, which are contracts that are basically available to those with those special certifications. And so it essentially reduces the pool that you have to compete with or against in order to be able to access those or to attain or procure those contracts. So that WOSB is most beneficial to those who are looking for federal contracts. But let's say you got a WeBank certification, that is actually going to be very beneficial and mostly beneficial if you're looking for contracts with corporate entities. So it's really all about understanding what your end goal is and your end game. And so, if you're only intended to really be focused on B2G, which is business to government, then you would look at the type of government entity that you're looking at, the level, so whether it's a municipality, whether it's a state, or whether it's federal, as well as what certifications they recognize. So it's not about getting at every certification that's out there. It's really about understanding what your end game is and being able to provide the appropriate certification for the revenue generating opportunity that you're looking for.
And if you're just tuning in, we have LaShonda Renee with True Fun. Go ahead and share the video, and be sure to give StreamYard permission to show your name so we know who's asking questions. If you're catching the replay, put hashtag replay. Let us know where you're from, and drop your questions in the comments. So we did touch on this, but it's worth going back over. The question was, does PPP pull your credit? So I think to start with that, we have to remind you about the CDFI businesses that where you can apply, and then I'll let LaShonda speak to the credit requirements.
Yeah, so for as far as the credit is concerned, PPP is not a credit-based product. So it's very specific to understanding when you are in business and calculating your maximum loan amount based on specific line items within your tax documents, depending on your tax filing structure. So your most lenders, it's not required by the SBA. True Fund does not pull your credit to process your PPP loan. We are using the documentation that is specifically indicated in the guidelines by the SBA, and none of those guidelines say that your credit should be pulled. It is not a credit-based product.
Awesome. Again, you guys drop your questions because LaShonda has a couple million applications to process over the weekend and everything, but we want to get this information out to you guys. Go ahead and visit the website, trufund.org, trufund.org, for a wealth of information. Excuse me. And what do you want to leave everybody with, LaShonda?
Well, I'll say the round 3 is open if you qualify. get your application in. There's no point in leaving money on the table. Just be prepared with your documentation. And remember that if you apply with TrueFund, we will take the time to help you understand all the pieces of your application so that you know what you're signing up for and know what you're eligible for. And again, educate yourself, invest in your business. And if you would like to take some time to learn about some of the programs that we have, again, shoot me an email at Renee@truefund.org, and I'll be happy to share information about PPP, information about our programming, as well as our other lending that we do. So we're not just a PPP lender, we are a small business lender beyond that. So we do have products available for small businesses in all of the markets that I mentioned, but I specifically am responsible for Texas. So if you reach out to me and you're not in the Texas area, I'll be happy to connect you with one of my colleagues who can help you connect with whatever resources are available there.
And one of the things that they're going to do that a bank isn't going to do is, and it's amazing how they do this, but they'll hold your hand. They will hold your hand through the process. Is there a checklist on the site for the documentation that's required?
So there's not a checklist on our website, but like I said, if you send me an email, I will respond with not only the list of documentation that's required, but also a brief snapshot of instructions that basically say and help you understand how to calculate based on your business structure. So we have the guidelines specific to how to calculate your total attached, as well as some brief instruction on how to complete your application. We do have a link that you use for the application, and once you complete that, we will follow up with you. So it may not be me following up with you, depending on where you're applying from, but a TrueFund staff person will get back with you as soon as you complete your application. And if for whatever reason the information in your application is incorrect or needs to be updated, or we need some additional documents, rest assured that we'll reach out and we'll make sure that we help you understand what it is that we need, and then also spend the time to help you, whether it's completing your application or whether it's some other aspect of the completing the full application and supporting documentation. So it's what we do. So we are a mission-based institution that is focused on capacity building. And so much of what we do through our programming is taking the time to understand what our client needs and helping them to bridge that gap.
So I got a DM, and the question in the DM is, do you qualify if your business wasn't profitable?
Okay, so, well, that's, again, very specific question, and we would have to see your documentation. But what I will say is, as an example, if you file a Schedule C and your line 31 is 0 or negative, you do not qualify. And so, again, the calculation is determined from very specific areas in your taxes. So there might be expenses that you are calculating or including in various areas, as well as revenue. And so if it's not going into that calculation of line 31, then that might be missed revenue, if you will, as it relates to PPP, because we have to specifically follow the guidelines, and it is line 31, line C. They're very specific on where we have to look to make those calculations. So if you're a Schedule C filer, this is an example, that has a negative or 0 line 31, then you would not qualify for the program.
And this is why you should seek out quality tax professionals that's not looking to write off everything, including the kitchen sink. Sometimes it makes sense to just capitalize that thing and stretch it out. So never mind. Anyway, LaShonda, we want to thank you for blessing our audience with such a wealth of information. Again, if you haven't gotten her email address, it is lrenee, that's one E at the end, at truefund.org. And she's very, very responsive, but please be patient. There's only a couple million people sending her emails and stuff right now. And what I will do, because I like you guys, I'm going to get the required documents and stuff and post them in the Boss Talk Radio group. That means if you're watching this on YouTube or on my personal Facebook page, you will have to join the Facebook Boss Talk Radio group to get that information. or you can just go to truefund.org to get that information. LaShonda, thank you again. And I know what I wanted to ask. Before I let you go, you mentioned the empowerment courses coming up in February.
Yep.
Can we just go a little bit deeper on that real quick, so those who may not right at this moment qualify for PPP can still reposition their
That's
business?
right. That's right. So that financial empowerment program that begins the first week of February will be 5 weeks. It's a series. And each week will take a different aspect of your financial business. And so we'll be looking first at your business structure from the legal standpoint. Then we'll be looking at your business structure from the tax and accounting standpoint. And then we'll be looking at and breaking down financial statements and how to really understand them and utilize them as a CEO to make business decisions. We'll also have some time with learning how to use some of the tools in QuickBooks so that you can better manage and improve your efficiencies. And then we'll also have a focus on personal and business credit and how to utilize that or leverage it to access capital.
You don't get that on LegalZoom. I'm just going to throw that out there about how to structure your business or whatever. When y'all tell me it's only $99, or you could just go and do it yourself. Lean not to your own understanding. Last part on that. Where and how do they sign up for that program?
So George, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll send you the link, and you can post it as well. If anyone emails me, I'll be happy to send it to them. So it's an e-link, and you complete the application. We'll follow up with an email to let you know we've received it, and then shortly thereafter, you'll get an email letting you know if you've been accepted into the program. It's a pretty brief application, very quick process, maybe 5 minutes to complete. And so I'll send you the link, George, that you can share with your network. And the same with the PPP application itself. I'll share the link. And through that link, they can actually complete their application process for PPP.
Okay. And so again, on the program, it's not automatic entry. Is it virtual?
They're all, yeah, thank you for asking. I totally forgot about that. They are virtual. And so we do offer our workshops and programming virtual right now, given COVID-19. Actually, before COVID, as a convenience, we offered a hybrid. So you could either come into our offices and participate in programming, or if it was an evening that you weren't able to access it, or excuse me, that you weren't able to come in and join us, you could actually access the class virtually from a device or a computer. And so we've now, since COVID, transitioned to be 100% online for our programming. And so you can participate from anywhere.
And it's not automatic that you're in. It is an application process. You have to be chosen.
I'll say this, we spend a lot of time with our clients, and so we just want to make sure that we're getting the information that we need, and also we do our best to get a sense of whether people are really interested in participating, because there's a lot of preparation that's required, as well as throughout the program, a lot of work to keep up with all the folks that apply and that are needing questions answered and support, et cetera.
And I'll tell you this as one of the subject matter experts. They don't just say, hey, you do this, come on board, or whatever. There's a vetting process that happens all the way around. So the people that you'll hear from are more than qualified to take you through this process and through this program. Once again, thank you, LaShonda Renee. It's been a pleasure. I'll get those links and everything from you, and I will post those within the next 24 hours or whatever. I know my phone is going to blow up. It does every time you're on the show. But you see right there where it says El Renee at truefund.org. She is the best suited to answer those questions that you may have. Thank you again. You've been tuned in to Boss Talk Radio. We will see you guys on next week.
This is Dr. Tamia Guest with Rejuvenating Chiropractic.
This is Nara Reed with Modified Nutrition Health Coach.
This is Karen Marcel with June Street Barbershop.
This is Tiffany Marcel with Marcel Luxury Realty, and you're listening to Boss Talk Radio.
I paid